What's up everyone, Thralls here once again. I'm Necrotic and doing a response video. I was watching some stuff on YouTube and I saw that fellow collector out there for all things metal, The Dark Path, did a whole challenge for defending bad metal albums. And I kind of decided I wanted to do that just because there are some out there that I really enjoy, even though they are maybe universally reviled or just not as favorable, or maybe just obscure and don't really fit in the discography. Whatever the reason, there are some questionable albums that I am willing to defend. So I went through and picked out 7 because I didn't want to make this too long of one, but I found some that I definitely still like, even though they are definitely not the best. And some of these are actually ones we've done in discography rankings, so you might already know how I feel about them, but you know, in terms of a discography, these might not have held up to the ones that I really loved. So yeah, I'm gonna go through some questionable albums here. So yeah, let's start this one off. Mormon Angels, Domination. Didn't rank this one that high overall in the ranking. I think I had it at 6. It's not my favorite one with David Vincent by far. I mean, that's Covenant by a long shot. Hell, even Altars is better. But I still like this album. There are just some dumb tracks that really kind of hamper it. You know, namely Hate Work, Caesar's Palace. The interludes are kind of whatever, they're just kind of there. But through Dawn of the Angry, Where the Slam Live, Dominate, there's some great songs on here. This Means War, fantastic song too. It's just kind of stuck in terms of, like, you know, the other stuff on there really stands out as really bad, at least in my opinion. I know there's people out there that absolutely love this album. One of our own Thralls ranked this above Altars of Madness. I still don't see it, but anyway, I will definitely still defend this album as at least a good album. I still like it. Dawn of the Angry is up there with one of my favorite Mormon Angels songs. I can jam that anytime and be thoroughly pleased with my decision. But yeah, this one definitely gets some flack. Definitely going through the Metallum or Metalum reviews, and it's still not very favorable. But I still enjoy it. I just skip over the shit I don't like. This could have been a really great EP, honestly, if they stripped out some of the bullshit. But anyway, I still like this album. It's still a lot of fun to listen to. I still go back to it pretty frequently. So yeah, that's one right there. Slayer, Christ Illusion. This one might not be as hated as some of the other ones in here, but I've definitely seen a lot of hate for this album, and I still don't get it. Pretty much, I think there's a lot of hate for anything after, say, Divine Intervention. People don't really get into the modern Slayer stuff. Like, I've seen some hate for God Hates Us All. I didn't think that's as great of an album as I remembered it, but I think it's still good. This one was one that just really got me back into Slayer. Like, I love the fact that they got Dave Lombardo back. No offense to Paul Bostaph, he's an amazing drummer. Dave Lombardo is my dude though, and I love his style of aggressive drumming, and I love this album. This is just pretty much super thrashy. They kind of ditched a lot of the groovier stuff for the most part. It just went for fast, aggressive songs, which is pretty much Slayer's strength overall. And hell, I even bought it twice just so I can get this little optical illusion thing on here. It's pretty cool. But yeah, I love pretty much most of this album. Flesh Storm's awesome. Catatonic, Conspiracy, great song. Cult, awesome. Supremacist. Final 6, the bonus track in here was also really good. Solid album. Definitely kind of underrated, at least in my opinion. I know there's other albums that I definitely have ahead of it, but I still really enjoy this one. And yeah, it kind of gets a little bit of shit. I don't think it's really deserved, but yeah. For A Cowboy, Genesis. My God, the waves of hatred that came out when these guys got signed to Metal Blade. I didn't have MySpace, so I didn't know about all the MySpace stuff, and honestly, I didn't care. It was just a way for them to promote themselves, and honestly, it's what everyone's doing now. They promote yourself on Bandcamp, promote yourself on Facebook. People didn't like that at that time. They thought it was cheating or whatever. But their original Doom EP, I really didn't care for. I mean, I own it, but it's not great. This, however, when I picked it up, despite all the reviews I saw, which were just, for the most part, overwhelmingly negative, I really enjoyed the music. It wasn't deathcore. Like, everyone said, oh, it's just a deathcore band, they're fucking Hot Topic, whatever. This is death metal. I don't really hear a lot of deathcore in here. It's very technical death metal. Sometimes it kind of misses the point of getting like a good groove going or like laboring a good riff, but there's some solid songwriting here. Embedded, Alone, awesome song. Altered from Cactization, I don't even know what that word is. Might be made up. I don't know, but I like the song. This was pretty much one of those bands that kind of maybe nudged me towards deathcore a little bit, but still kept me in death metal because there was no part of this I really associated with stuff that came out later, like Whitechapel and a Mirror and, you know, take your pick of any other of those deathcore bands. These guys didn't really sound like it at this point. And with every album, they really just kind of kept changing their sound and kind of pushing more towards death metal. And when you finally get to Sun Eater, their last one, honestly, I think that album's brilliant. And I think it was actually reviewed pretty well too, despite people not liking Job for a Cowboy, simply because they didn't like Job for a Cowboy. I've seen these guys multiple times too. They're a solid live band, regardless of the lineup. Whatever lineup's playing with John Davey apparently is really good. Never got to see the Sun Eater lineup, never toured on it, but this was really good, and I still enjoy this album a lot. And man, did it get a lot of hate. I don't know if it still gets any hate. I don't know if people have kind of gotten over that and have sort of embraced this, but I know at the time a lot of people shit on this band. Good album though, definitely check it out. In Flames, Reroute to Remain. I have to love this one still quite a bit just because this was one of my earliest exposures to melodic death metal. First In Flames album I ever picked up. I still really like this one. I don't like the real muddy production, especially when I went back and got their earlier stuff, which I absolutely love. And a good chunk of the stuff after this was pretty meh to I'm not even gonna buy it anymore. But this was really good. Like, they had a good balance of melody and like nice big heavy chunky riffs. I loved the fact that they weren't big on solos as much as they were on lead melodies. The songwriting on here was really tight. There was a little bit of that 2000s metalcore feel. I mean, it was 2002 when this came out, and that was really starting to rise. And I can see they were adapting to the times and maybe changing their sound to become more accessible, even though this is still a really heavy album. The title track is one of my favorites. Drifter, I absolutely love that palm muted chug that carries the song. Trigger was surprisingly a really good single, and I mean, Cloud Connected's good. This whole album is really loaded with some solid songs. It's just not my favorite in terms of their overall discography, but it is by far not the worst. That was yet to come, unfortunately. But this was still a fun listen. I still go back to this one periodically. Production may not be the best, but songs, pretty solid. The Haunted, The Dead Eye. When Peter Dolby returned to The Haunted, it was not the most embraced return in terms of the music. I remember a lot of people really didn't like Revolver. I liked it. That was thrashy and energetic. That's some really killer songs on it. Some people thought it was a little too metalcore. But when this one came out, I think a lot of fans kind of lost it. This was definitely more experimental. This was not really melodic death metal or metalcore. It was kind of just groove metal with maybe a lot of melodic death metal hooks. Really different songwriting on here. Totally different than the last album. Totally different than anything they had done to this point. There are some thrashy barn burners on here that are really good. The Shifter, The Medication. Oh yeah, and every track begins with the. But this is an experimental album that I think paid off because it really showed off how good they were as songwriters in terms of writing stuff outside of what they normally did. I love pretty much every track on here. The Medusa might be one of my favorite songs by The Haunted. I like the fact that Peter Dolby stretched his vocals a little bit. There's some more tuneful crooning and singing. And even when he sings, it's kind of odd because he sounds like he's from the South, even though he's from Sweden. But a lot of really good songs on here. I love The Drowning. I think that's a really awesome song. The Prosecution's a great song too. Lots of killer hooks, and they really tried to craft something different. And I think they succeeded at that. Following album, and then the one following that one, definitely more questionable. But this one, I think they just wanted to do something different, and I think they succeeded. Thinking outside of the box, I think paid off for them this one. Again, wasn't well embraced. I don't think it holds up very well on Encyclopedia Metallum or Metallum, however you want to say it. It just doesn't sound like anything The Haunted did up to this point, and it definitely doesn't sound like The Haunted now. So yeah, this is kind of a different era for The Haunted, but I still recommend checking it out because I think it's a really good album. Anthrax, Sound of White Noise. This was probably my third or fourth Anthrax album I ever bought, and I was shocked because it was nothing like Persistence of Time, or Spreading the Disease, or Fistful of Metal. I believe those were the first 3 I owned. This was the first album with John Bush, and this was a completely different era for Anthrax. They were pretty much kind of ditching thrash metal and going with kind of groove metal, maybe alternative metal. But there's some absolutely killer songs here. They kind of crafted a different kind of heavy, really accessible. John Bush's vocals, I absolutely loved him. I loved his gruff tone. Very different singer than Joey Belladonna. And I think lyrically he also brought some interesting ideas to it too. Room for One More, High Pro Glow, 1,000 Points of Hate, Burst. That's a little bit of a return to the thrashier stuff. Not much. But there's a lot of creative songs in here and just catchy, maybe heavy rock songs. Invisible's got a nice fun bounce to it. And this one is also one where I think Charlie really stepped up in terms of the songwriting too. It wasn't just Scott. And the only thing I would say is Dan Spitz kind of felt out of place. Not only his haircut didn't really fit the times, but his solos kind of felt like they were hanging on too much to the 80s and really not embracing the 90s as much. But still, this was a solid album in terms of trying to adapt your sound and get out of, you know, what they were doing instead of trying to retread. They did a good job here. Following couple albums, not so much, but I definitely will defend this one. I still love this album. It's got some killer songs on it. If you've never jammed this one, don't go into it thinking it's going to sound like all the early stuff or even the last 2 albums, but it's still a solid album. It's just a different kind of heavy. Check it out. And finally, Sepultura, Nation. I still have a soft spot for this album. I know it's just kind of new metal retread. It's not too far removed from Roots. I think it's definitely better than Against. Some of that Chaos AD energy I think was more present on here than it was on actually even Roots and Against. These songs were a little bit more straightforward. At this point we were still, you know, kind of on the fence. Is this Derek Green guy? Is he going to be legit? Is he going to actually be there for a while? I don't know. I like Derek Green. I think he's a solid singer. He's got an interesting vocal approach, cool gruffness. He's a more thought out lyricist than Max. I love Max. I love him to death. I've been a Sepultura fan longer than I've been a Metallica fan. Yeah, I kind of had like an interesting order in terms of thrash metal. But this album was pretty good. I mean, it was just straightforward groove metal. There were some like really short hardcore tracks in between, but I had some songs in here I really, really enjoyed. One Man Army, Ways of Faith I thought was really good. Who Must Die, Politrix. They brought back Jello for a song, and actually he does a really good performance on here. And this is the special edition with a cover of Rise Above and Bela Lugosi's Dead, which were both really fun too. This one didn't get promoted very well. The label really wasn't in love with it, and this was the last one they did on Roadrunner before going off to other labels. I believe they went to Steamhammer next, and, you know, did some pretty decent albums on there. But I still think this album has some worth. It may not hold up to a lot of the other Sepultura stuff, and it's definitely far from the best that they've done with Derek Green, but it's still pretty good, at least to me. I know it's not well liked, but I still dig it. I'll definitely defend the songs I love on it for sure. Check it out. Alright, that was 7 albums that are bad, but I'm willing to defend. And I mean, I won't say they're bad because obviously I still like them, but I know like sort of the universal court of opinion out there would say they're bad, but they're fun. So yeah, Dark Path, solid challenges. This was fun to go through. I still have a soft spot for these apparently. And yeah, I pretty much say if you guys like this sort of thing, definitely do this challenge because it was kind of fun trying to defend these. It was a little difficult at times because I was thinking about, ooh, those tracks are pretty bad though, but the tracks I loved on certain albums outweigh that. So yeah, there will be a link to Dark Path's channel in the description below because I think everyone should definitely try out this challenge, at least all the YouTube metalheads, because this was a fun one. So if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe because we do stuff like this all the time. Catch you guys later.